Yep, we're good.
Why don't we go ahead and start? Welcome, all of you. It's a little bit hard to talk to a screen, as I'm sure it's a little bit difficult for you to be watching us again, especially at the end of a long Zoom day. I'm Leanne Musser. I'm the college coordinator, and I'm here with your junior counselors, Mrs. Bauer, Mr. King, and Mr. Zaroli. This is a junior town hall set up for students. However, we know that there are a lot of parents that are also working at home these days, so we've invited them to listen to this as well and answer their questions. We're calling it the review because we actually have posted all of this information for juniors since September. And so I'm going to start with kind of what we should have been doing all first semester. So the junior timeline, where we've been, you should have viewed our presentations on the College and Career Center webpage. You should have read through the packet, which is short for the College News and Scholarship packet, also found on the College Center webpage. You should have been using Naviance or other websites to research colleges. We showed you how to use the Supermatch tool. And could use that in Naviance and other sites like Big Future as well. Hopefully you've been attending the many virtual visits that we've offered with college reps who have put their visits in Naviance. And we've also had a lot of virtual college fairs as well. Since we're not having a college fair this year, however, you should know that our reps are going to continue their visits through April. Hopefully you've been talking to your parents about financing college, because that's a discussion that you need to have early in the game. And hopefully you were present at our financial night presentation last September. I know it's been hard to visit campuses. You should know that they're opening up gradually for in-person, sometimes one-on-one, but I'm guessing that as we get into the spring and summer that we'll see more and more campuses that you can actually step foot on and get a feel for if that's the right place for you. Hopefully you've also registered and taken some standardized tests, or certainly you are already registered to take an SAT in April, and that's handled by us, so you don't need to do that, but you will at least have one SAT this year. Again, virtual college fairs are coming up. There are more in the college packet you can check on. And then finally, we're going to be asking you today to start making your summer plans, job, camp, college prep program, and those are also listed in the College News and Scholarship packet as they come up. And this summer, we would like you to start working on your college essay. Not today, we're going to actually cover that in our next Zoom meeting. Now, if you've been listening to me for the last few minutes and saying, wow, I don't even know where the College Center webpage is, I haven't done any of this, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully you've at least been talking to your counselor or to me. But if not, we are going to have Mr. Zaroli actually take you to the College and Career Center webpage, and we're going to walk you through some of those things once again.
All right, thanks, Ms. Musser. So when you go into lths.net, our main page, and you go to Student Resources, you can click on College Career Center, and I'm just going to kind of highlight a few areas. Our SEEB code is here. That's a question we get a lot at the beginning of the year next year, so this is a good place to find it. But I'm going to start with something called Naviance Directions. Many of you have been in Naviance. We've posted videos on how to do this on our Canvas page. Our Canvas page is called Junior Counselor, but it walks you kind of through all the things that you need to navigate Naviance. So these are all instructions. If there's something here that you feel like you need to better understand or access, this is a great spot. But like Ms. Musser said, you can always reach out to us and we're happy to help you. But some of the most popular things that we need to provide directions for in Naviance are available right here. That packet that Ms. Musser was talking about, it's College News and Scholarship packet. We call it the packet because it's pretty lengthy and it's usually in paper form and comes out every couple of weeks here at North Campus, and students are carrying them around and they notice that's what they come in looking for. Hey, where's that packet that I saw somebody else walking around with? So it's really got a lot of great information here. We'll kind of just scroll through it. We've got announcements. There's bunch of other announcements coming down here. We've got College of DuPage info and programs. college fairs in the area. Like Ms. Musser mentioned, we are not doing one here and hosting one here. Visits both in and out of our school. If you keep going down, there's summer opportunities, there's diversity programs. So this is a great thing for juniors to start looking at. What can I do this summer that might be in line with a school I'm interested or a program I'm interested in? Scholarships, this is another excellent spot to start looking at. When we look here, we've got a pretty lengthy list, and we pretty much just have a dollar amount and a due date. Those are going to be for seniors. However, you can start looking at that as junior by going in through Naviance. You'll be able to click on a link in Naviance and get a little bit of more information about what does it require instead of just the dollar amount and the due date.
Yeah, Mr. Zerli, I always get a lot of questions about scholarships from juniors. Actually, the scholarship season runs pretty much from the first week of December until spring break. There are a few, and we'll be posting them in the early fall, and those are generally college related. In other words, if you're going to attend this college, this scholarship opportunity is there. But for the most part, they are that December to March time frame. Today, one of our final scholarships was actually due, and that's because colleges want to know that you are going to, in fact, attend a college, you've been accepted, and that you'll be utilizing that scholarship next year. Also, before we move on, if you have any questions while we're talking, please put them in the chat. We're not going to take actual verbal questions on this town hall. So just click on the chat, type the question, and then later on, Mrs. Bauer will be telling us what those questions are, and we can answer them for everyone. All right,
Great.
Mr. Zerli, let's see
Yeah,
some
thanks,
other
Ms. Musser.
questions.
Yeah, so college info for juniors. This is a tab that this actual presentation that's being recorded right now will also be added here. But Ms. Musser took some time first semester to create some information that we all kind of got together and felt this is the stuff that juniors need to know. So
Right.
these are maybe, go ahead.
You want me to explain them?
Sure.
So I broke them into 3 different sessions. So basically you're going to look at what should you be looking at in a college as you visit, as you're researching. Secondly, what are colleges looking for in prospective students? And then the third one is kind of the timeline that you should be doing all this and the resources available to help you. So if you haven't seen those already, please go back and view those.
Yeah, thank you. So we also have a spot here with 2021 events. There's a college admissions testing event that Ms. Musser planned earlier in the year, and a financial aid presentation that was recorded, which are great things to check out also. Ms. Musser, do you have anything you want to say about those?
No, I'd say that the most questions we had this year is, you know, about test optional, about should I test, shouldn't I test, should I take the ACT or the SAT? All of that was covered in that presentation, and it's really helpful to go back and view that. We can also take individual questions. We don't want you to think that we're just constantly referring you to a previous meeting. We are available here to take your individual questions or to meet with you. But often we're telling you information that has already been presented. So it'll be a lot more helpful to you, and maybe you have additional questions after viewing one of these presentations.
Yeah, one other spot I just wanted to point out is the student job postings. That's also listed here in College Career Center. There's drop-down menus here, but I would generally recommend leaving them all marked as all, just hitting submit. Especially right now, given the situation, there's only so many that are available. You can kind of scroll through, you can see contact information, age limit, do they need a driver's license? Sometimes there's pay in there. So that's another great thing to look at, especially as we're heading into the summertime. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, Ms. Musser, and hand it back over to you.
Okay.
Where am I there?
All right. Do we have any initial questions on anything that we have already presented before we move on? Is there anything in the chat that you're seeing, Mrs. Bauer?
Yeah, the one question was, there used to be a link directly to our Naviance guest account from the college and career page. And is that available now anywhere else?
No, because we're a single sign-on. This is a great question. We went to single sign-on. So you have to be in a D204 account in order to access Naviance. And then as soon as you put in your LT email address, you can automatically access everything. We have never had parent accounts, so a parent must go through a student's account. Unfortunately, the same is true for all of our presentations. You have to view it through a D204 account, and that's actually the protections that our system has in place, the IT system has in place. So as long as you have a student's login or a student, you're using your login, you can go right to Naviance. It won't ask you for anything more than that initial LT email address.
Remember, juniors, you go to the website, you go to the very main web page, and you look for that Google icon. When you click on Google, that's where you're going to put in your username and your password and such. And then you're going to click on the Google Apps, and you're going to see all your apps pop up. And that's where you just click on Naviance, and you'll be right in.
Yeah, there's a little waffle with all the apps, and Naviance is a big capital N, and that's all you have to do.
And I just wanted to add, there's a video, Mr. Zaroli has a video on that. So there's one of the videos that Ms. Musser pointed out at the beginning. It's a 2-minute video. It'll show you exactly how to get in if you're having trouble, or let one of us know.
The reason we removed the one that was on Naviance is it directed you to a generic Naviance page, and you had to go through putting in your district information in the school that you were at. It was just way too complicated, when if you were a student, all you had to do is go to the little Google waffle and click on the Naviance.
That's it.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'll move on to some other things, and we'll see if you have any questions as you come up, as we discuss things. So by the end of this year, we already said you should have been visiting with colleges online. You should have been using our super match to kind of identify schools that that you're interested in. And you should start developing a list so that by the end of this year, you have a good, solid college list. And honestly, as much as people say it's not about you, it's not about you, this list really is about you, because you're going to get to pick your criteria. Do I want to be in on a large campus or a small one, an urban or a typical college setting in a rural area? You're going to consider the geography, size, the cost. And then once you decide on a couple of schools, you're going to start going back and looking at what we call the middle 50%. That means half of all students who were admitted to this school last year had this GPA and test score. And if you are matching that, then that's pretty much what we call a target school for you, where you're more likely to get into that school. And the other thing we'd like you to do in developing this list is go into Naviance under your plan tab, and there's something called a game plan survey, and it's going to ask you some similar questions. Do you want me to show that online, guys, or I can do that? Hang on a second. As soon as I find a Naviance tab. Oops, where'd my Naviance go? Anybody got Naviance up here? Oops. Okay. So it looks like, sorry, it looks like for now, I don't have it pulled up, and I don't want to take the time to pull it up, but basically on your own About Me, there's a little plan tab, and there's a survey on there that'll ask you similar questions. Such as the geography and the size and the type of school, and also some additional information, whether or not you want to play sports in school and things like that. If you can start getting that game plan survey put together, it will definitely help you in making your decisions. You got it? Survey should be under. Probably isn't not started because you haven't done it. All right, we'll bring it up. Anyway, this is also something that we're probably going to cover with you in our next session. Let me go back to my screen. All right, so I And Naviance, using Naviance for your college list, obviously, Naviance is your easiest, most accessible feature. And also it holds all of your information. Next year, when you're requesting transcripts for colleges, you're going to be adding colleges in Naviance. You're going to be requesting transcripts in Naviance. So the two things we want you to do is certainly familiarize yourself with Naviance, and also pay attention to emails that come to you from Naviance. That's the way I send emails. And pay attention to emails in general. As you're setting up different college visits and sites, make sure that you are using hopefully the same email, preferably your D204 email, because then your college information and your school information will all be coming to one email address. We don't tell you that you can't use your own email. That used to be more of a problem in matching for us, but often you miss a lot of important information from either us or from colleges because it gets mixed up in your personal email. So if you can, I would say use your D204 email. Using the college search feature, we do have an entire video on that. I think it was, did you do that one, Mr. Zaroli? On the, or Mrs. Bauer might have, on how to use the college search feature, how to use the super match to put in the criteria that you want and come up with a list of schools. And then what we'd like you to do once you develop that list is add those to colleges I'm thinking about. So that tells us that you're interested in that college. And also when we have college visits, you will receive an email if that college is in your list, asking you if you're interested in signing up for a visit once they post a visit in our rep visits. I get a lot of questions this time of year about the Common App versus the college's own application. And actually, we're going to cover the Common App in our next session. But basically, a common application is one application that you can use to send to over 900 different colleges. So a lot of our students use the Common App. It is very, very important that once you set up a Common App account, that you know your password, you know your username and password, because we do not. And it's very hard to retrieve information and send documentation when you don't remember it. So right now, we're not going to encourage you to run and start a Common App account until we can kind of walk you through that. But just know in the future, we're going to be talking to you about the Common App and probably mostly about how to do the Common Application essay. So bottom line is you're going to review all the admissions requirements. If you add a school, you may like that it has your D3 volleyball and it has your major and it's large enough and in a warm enough place and all of that. But you want to make sure that you meet the requirements, not just GPA and test score, where I know that I'm admissible, but how many years of English do they want? How many years of science? How many years of math are required? They will show those all on their website. So we want you to develop a shorter list so that you can go back more thoroughly and review the websites, what's required for that college, why it's a good fit for you, and have a better understanding of whether or not this should be a school that stays in your list or not. In my previous slide, I said you should have about 8 to 12 colleges at the end. Preferably it's under 10. Some of you may have those higher numbers just because you're applying to highly selective colleges where even if you have everything that they need and want, you have all the correct requirements, you have a GPA, high GPA, you have the test scores, you have everything, it's still so selective that the likelihood of your getting in is still slim. So you may have a few more of those schools, but in general, we want to see the bulk of your colleges being schools that you are very likely to get into, and then 1 or 2 where you know you can get, you're well above their averages, or they have an open enrollment like a community college. How are we doing on our questions?
Believe it or not, we don't have any more. So, I mean, feel free to put them into the chat and we hope to get to them.
Okay, so for a town hall, I'm doing an awful lot of discussion here. It's supposed to be questions, but let's kind of look at what are more obvious questions this time of year. One, we talked about testing, right? So you're all going to be testing, is it April 14th, 13th?
13th.
13th, there we go. That's testing week, so there's, but juniors will be testing on the 13th. We do have test prep available. Some of you have probably already signed out or signed up and are in the middle of that. But the large question is, do I have to register? And as I mentioned before, you don't. We will register you. If you wish to take any additional tests, like an ACT test or another national SAT test that's offered on a Saturday, you have to register for those yourself. Please remember that whenever you take an exam through College Board, which is the SAT, you are given an account. Once again, we have no idea what that account number is or how to get into it. So if you receive results from a test, please hang on to it and make sure you have a place where you're keeping usernames and passwords for college accounts and for testing accounts. Because if you have to start reporting your scores or going into that account to request that scores be sent to your colleges, then you will need to know that account name, and we have no idea what it is. And I can tell you this year, people were going crazy, waiting online, trying to get to SAT or ACT just to find out what their account was. Also, that's a valuable bit of information that you have when you receive a test score. So don't just throw it aside. Keep it. I generally suggest students start keeping individual manila folders on schools that they're looking at, so that when they receive information or they want to print out information, they can file it in those folders. Obviously today you can even do that virtually. Just put your things in a virtual folder and you know exactly how to access that.
So Mrs. Musser, we've gotten a few questions. Can I interrupt you for a sec?
Sure can.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about who do we need to talk to for about letters of recommendation?
Okay, so students always rush to get letters of recommendation that they may or may not need. So for instance, you don't need a letter of recommendation for University of Illinois, Urbana. Matter of fact, they don't want them and they say don't send them. So when I talk about going to look at what a school needs and wants in terms of admission requirements, I also need you, as we get closer to summer and fall, to start looking at what their application requirements are, and they'll be very clear. They'll tell you, yes, we want a teacher recommendation, or no, we don't. For those of you that will be using the common application, there's a big grid. You'll get a little dashboard as you start adding schools. It'll tell you right on there whether or not they need a teacher recommendation, often called the Common App calls it a teacher evaluation, because that's a form that they will put together with their recommendation letter and send it. So don't rush now. We actually don't allow teachers to take requests for recommendations until after Labor Day, because when they come back to school in the fall, their total focus is on teaching you, not writing letters. Not that they won't do it, but they need time to get into the classroom routine and start getting to know their students. So after Labor Day, you can make a request. Also, that you have some work to do before you make a request. You're going to have to fill out a form that the teacher now has accessible in Naviance. You'll decide which teachers you would like to write a letter and for which school. And we're gonna show you in the fall how to make those requests through Naviance and to complete information that helps a teacher write that recommendation for you. So don't rush to recommendation. And I don't think I can say this enough, because every year I say, don't rush to recommendation, spend that time working on your essay, but it's always in reverse. So we want to know what a school needs first. Find out if you do need a teacher recommendation for any of the schools to which you'll be applying, and then make a short list. And then in the fall, we'll show you how to fill out the forms to make that request. You also may be required to submit a counselor recommendation. That also is not always the case, but if you do, the counselors will also have a form for you to fill out to help them remember those important aspects of your personality, your involvement, your engagement, your academic work, and other things that they can share with a college.
And then what is the time frame for the Common App, and when should we start applications?
Okay, we are going to show you how to open a Common App account in late spring. You should know that that account actually is not officially a senior account until August 1st, because what Common App does is gets rid of all the previous applicants, all the graduating seniors are in there, and they will roll that information out and roll new information in. So as of August 1st, your new application, your new account becomes live as a senior. So most of the information will roll over, but information, for instance, if you were looking at a college and they had an essay question and you started filling out that information, it may not roll over. All right. So you don't want to do individual college information, but you certainly can look at a Common App. As I said, we'd rather do it together just to make sure that you don't set up an account. I'd say the number one problem we had with students' accounts this year was that their parents started one and the students started one. Now, the important thing to know about Common App is that when you request documents be sent for your, when you complete an application, it goes to Common App. It doesn't go to the college. It goes to Common App. And all of the documents that we send go to Common App. Common App doesn't look at anything we send. It won't look at a recommendation, a transcript, a counselor rec, anything that we send until they receive your application. So it just sits there. So you don't have to be in such a hurry to send it because they're not looking at anything till they get your application. And I can tell you, I probably have at least 200 to 300 requests for letters of recommendation and information that is sitting at Common App at some Common App college because a student never applied. And it's really discouraging to teachers and counselors who've written letters to see that they never needed them or that the student never applied. So what happens if we send all of our documents to that original place that we've told you, the original college you suggested in Common App, and then you lost your username and password and said, oh, I'm just going to start another account. Your stuff will go to one account and ours is sitting at another one waiting for your first application. So it's really important that you complete one and only one Common App and make sure that nobody else in your household is doing one as well. Secondly, your Common App's not active until we match it in Naviance. In other words, we send our documents through Naviance to colleges and through Naviance to Common App. We have to match your account with Naviance, and that is something that we do in our group guidance in the fall. And if we don't get to see you in person to do that, we're going to be showing you how to do this again online and through instructional videos. So let's hope that we get to do some in-person stuff. So bottom line, don't worry about starting a Common App. You can certainly look at a Common App. You can look at the website. If for some reason you just feel compelled to open an account for yourself to dig into it more, then make sure that you put that username and password in a vault where you can find it next year. But that was a lengthy answer. What else do we have?
Can you clarify the deadline for, so 2022 graduating senior, so that would be the juniors right now, is the scholarship at the end of this month or next year of March 2022?
The scholarship?
Yeah, so I think when you were talking about scholarships, you were saying like most scholarships are for seniors. So juniors can look at what's available, but they are not applying to them. And so what our juniors need to know is that next year in their senior year, usually by spring break, the scholarships are done because they have to now be reviewed, looked at, and rewarded.
Yes. So there are very few, as I mentioned, for juniors. However, a junior should always look and say, oh, look at, there's a scholarship available for someone who does, who works with students with disabilities. I do that. I need to remember that that's there for next year and I will apply. Anything in there this year is for this year. So unless it specifically says on Naviance for juniors and seniors, it's generally marked that it's for seniors.
And will we be having a separate meeting so that students understand the scholarship information that is available using the common data set that is available on each college website?
Right, so there's a common data set you can link online. I don't know that we'll be using the common data set in our informational sessions. As I said, we tend to look at Naviance only because if you're looking at a common data set, you're looking at all applicants to the college, which is on their website as well. When you're looking at our data in Naviance, we're looking at our admitted students and our applications. It can compare yourself a little bit more accurately because colleges select students by throughout considering their environment. In other words, you're not getting compared to a Hinsdale student or a Morton student. You're getting compared to another LT student. What courses were available to them, what rigor they had, what opportunities were available in their own environment. And so it's a little bit more accurate to look at ours. The common data set is valuable for other resources, graduation rates, things like that, which are also in Naviance.
If you've already taken an SAT test, do you have to take the one SAT in school in April?
Well, all students are required to take that SAT for graduation. It's a state requirement. If for some reason you weren't able to make that one, they have allowed students to take another SAT on their own that they can use. But yes, all students must have an SAT. It's our state exam.
Can you confirm that juniors do not have to register for the SAT that will be held at LT in April?
That's correct. It's done automatically through, since it's required by the state and the school is paying for it, we do the registration.
How would you
And those
recommend
test scores do go to College Board, by the way. You can indicate that you want them sent to schools, but you don't have to do that. But if you don't do that, then you will be paying for each set of scores to be sent individually to colleges. So it's about $13 per score per school. So if you want to save some money, you can go ahead and put those schools in when you're asked to register in your classes. Also, if you if you're considering going test optional, or you want to know which schools don't require a test score, that number of schools has gone from about 200 to over 2,000. So you can go to a website called fairtest.org, FAIRTEST.org, and you can see the complete list of schools that do not require a test score. So test optional means you don't have to send one in, but you can. Generally, we say if a score reflects your academic work, then you certainly should send it. And if not, then you have a reason not to send it. But usually in the past, 65% of all students who went who were going test optional did choose to, that went to test optional schools did choose to send test scores. We're seeing this year that it's more about 50% of students decided to send a test score, and that's mostly because it's a little bit lower because they said a lot of people just weren't able to test this year.
How do you engage a student who's frozen because they're overwhelmed with not knowing what they want to go to school for and what they want to do for a career? And email accounts are buried with school emails, so they can't even find their emails from the school.
Wow. Sounds like, first of all, it does seem overwhelming when you get all the information at once. I will say to you, there are an awful lot of schools that have really simple applications. They have wonderful reps who have virtual visits with you that can walk you through any questions that you have. For instance, if you're going to apply to, let's say, Northern Illinois University, you have a 2.75 or higher, and you've got basic, you meet the requirements for their basic recommended coursework, like 4 years of English, 3 years of math, etc. You don't need a test score. You don't need an essay. You don't need a letter of recommendation. You don't need something from your counselor. You don't need any forms. All you need to do is go online, basically, if you know your name, your address, your date of birth, and if you're undecided, you can say undecided, and you sign off, pay for it, done. Within a couple of weeks, you will hear from that school whether or not you're in. There are also other simple applications, like the University of Iowa is a numeric system. In other words, you have to have 255 points in order to be automatically admitted. So all you do is take your unofficial transcript, you put in your points, your courses and your grades. You don't even need a transcript. That's called a self-reported academic record. And if you have 255 points, you already know you're in. So we have a lot of students every year that when we come in August, have already been admitted to a school. I will say that when you're checking college websites and they're taking several types of applications, their own or the Common App, it's often easier to use their own, especially for a school like Iowa. You can fill it out a lot quicker, and the Common App is a lot more complicated. So you might just want to see which of those applications might fit you better and use that one.
How important has the ACT and SAT test scores been for the class of 2021 in getting admitted to their colleges?
Well, it's still a little bit early to say right now. I would say in some institutions, submitting the test score didn't net more admissions. It netted more money in scholarships, because that's what I can really determine. So right now we're saying that our admissions are strong. We haven't seen, matter of fact, if anything, I've seen students who maybe would have been borderline for admission, get admission by not sending in a test score that they didn't think was really strong. On the other hand, I've seen students get more money awarded to them when they've sent a test score, even if it wasn't a super high test score.
If you do a Saturday SAT and you do the school-based SAT, how do we make sure the right score gets moved forward to the colleges?
Well, there's a really good question. It's up to you, because we don't send test scores ever. We get asked all the time, will you send my score to whatever college? And we say, LT does not send test scores. For just that reason, students take the test over and over again, and we don't know which score they want, or they'll say, send my highest. And we don't even have them all, we don't even have them all in our data bank sometimes, because they come from the testing agency directly to our IT, and we sometimes have to wait for them to be uploaded. But you have your scores. So you're the one that determines when you register for a school, whether or not you want to send that score to the school. You'll get 4 for free if you do it then, as opposed to waiting to see what the score is and then paying $13 a score per school. And also running the risk that you're going to forget to send your test score when you really wanted to send a test score.
A parent is concerned because they said Naviance does not have scholarship information. Can you clarify that?
Scholarship info. Actually, we have a scholarship list, and we have them all posted on the college news and scholarship packet. So I'm not sure what exactly that means. When we do have scholarships, we post them in the list. The application is there, the description is there. It might not be as public as, so maybe the parent is not going through the student's Naviance account and seeing it, but it is there.
I can show that screen. When you go into the Naviance account, you can go to colleges and then scholarships and money and scholarship list.
And then go to local and regional.
Right. So that's how you can get in through that.
So there were two categories. You kind of switched out quickly, but
I'll go back in. Here we go. Local and regional right here.
Okay, so the left one was college specific and the right one was regional. So all of our local and regional scholarships are in that list. And if there's a scholarship that's specific to a university, like the Wells Scholarship for Indiana or the Jefferson for Virginia, it would be listed under the college specific scholarship.
A couple of parents questioned once again. So just for clarification, the scholarship application period will start for current juniors in the fall of 2021, because then they are seniors. But right now, there really is not anything for them.
No.
Okay.
And if there
Um,
is one that's offered this year, it will, when you click on the description, it will very clearly say for juniors and seniors or 9 through 12, as opposed to most of our local scholarships are offered to our seniors.
And have any college admissions reps said anything that is important to gain admission into schools right now, given the current circumstances?
Well, they have asked students to, or given them the option to complete an essay question on how COVID has impacted their college search process, selection process, perhaps impeded them. 'Cause I would say one thing in particular I've heard over and over from students is that they haven't had the opportunities to do some of the internships, summer jobs, and a lot of things that were available to them that they would have put in a resume in the past. And when I ask colleges about that, they say, we get it. We've been closed too. So what we wanted to know is what you were signed up to do, or give us some information on how you've done some things virtually, because they know that many of these experiences have been offered virtually. And just inform them. You shouldn't look at an application as so much of a judgment by a school, as they're just trying to figure out who you are and what you did and how you took advantage of things, or how you got frustrated by things that weren't available to you in the past. So explain who you are, and use your own voice, because that's really that's what they're admitting you on, not that GPA and test score so much, but who you say you are. And that's why I think if students spent more time on the essay in terms of really explaining, articulating who they are and what they're interested in. I would actually start by listing the things that you got involved in freshman through junior year, and then giving some reflection about that. What did I enjoy? What didn't I enjoy? Why did I drop this club and get involved in that? So that you can show a school that you started out with some broader interests, you found something you really enjoyed, and then you put in more time and more leadership in that particular club or activity. You don't have to be the president. You don't have to be an officer. Maybe you ran a committee, or you were involved in a committee, or started a fundraiser. Whatever volunteer activities you were able to do, you want to be able to articulate why those were important to you as a person. Because the college is saying to you, who's coming on my campus, and what are they going to bring to us as a community? And you're looking at what can that school offer me as a community, and how are the two overlapping to make for a good fit.
Parents are asking, is there going to be an essay portion for the SAT?
The SAT essay is no longer going, I don't even think we might already have it as part of this one.
I think it is part of our April state one. It is part of the April state one.
Right.
You were going to say they discontinued it.
It is going to be discontinued, and colleges are not looking for it. So you shouldn't have to worry about that. And for those of you that are taking the tests more than once, you should look to see whether or not your school will super score. That means on the SAT, they will take the highest math and the highest verbal and put them together of several test administrations. And for the ACT, they will take the highest of the 4 quadrants, add them together, and divide by 4 to get the higher composite score.
When students sit for the SAT next month, should they be listing schools that should receive the scores? And what if you want to try again for a better score? They're confused. Okay,
so if a school super scores, then you can send as many as you want, because they're only going to take the highest anyway, and it actually could be to your advantage to send them several scores. They always consider the highest score, and they don't look back and say, oh, look it, they got a 25 this time and they got a 28 that time. That 25 is really low, or whatever they think. They don't do that. Matter of fact, lots of times they just have someone who goes through and picks out the highest scores and puts them on. So ask your representatives as you're meeting with them if they in fact super score, because that could be to your advantage. But even if they don't worry about a lower score. They will take the highest score, whatever best advantages you.
So then would you recommend, if a student is still undecided on their colleges, they should still pick 4 schools to send their April SAT scores to? And if they do send those scores automatically, but they're not what they want them to be, can they resubmit another score if they get a better score?
Yes. I think that I'd take a couple of weeks and just narrow down a few schools that you know you're going to apply to or are extremely likely to apply to. And they're free anyway. If you totally change your mind, it didn't cost you anything more than if you added scores later, all right? So every time you take a test, you have the option to send those 4 scores for free. If you have two of your 4 schools that you know you're going to apply to, then those 2 schools will get it every time. Or you could change it every time. But it doesn't hurt you to send the scores, and it saves you some money too. Now, a lot of schools right now are asking only for scores reported by the student, and will only ask for that paid for score to be sent later to verify. All right. In other words, if you're admitted, you're going to enroll, then you've got to show us the final test score that you're going to pay for. And that's to help save money for students so that they're not sending lots of scores, right?
Can the students skip the essay portion on the SAT at LT next month? What would happen if they left it blank?
They wouldn't get a score.
Right.
And it'd be a long time to sit and watch the rest of them. It's probably good. It's probably a good experience for you anyway. Some of you are actually going to have to eventually go to orientation at your college, where you might have to sit and take a quick impromptu essay. Or you can use it to start brainstorming your own essay for your college admission. But if it's there, it's there, but it's not going to hurt you if it's not there. It does hurt our school, I guess, in terms of our overall score, if they report scores on state records, maybe, but that's about it.
A parent put down, they thought the SAT score didn't count in April.
Didn't count for colleges?
I think that's
a score only counts if you use it. Right now, it's only counting for the high school and for the student. In other words, he's got to take it to graduate because the state says you have to take it. You don't have to get a certain score, you just have to take the exam. Your score goes on our school report card, so it hurts us more than you in that regard. If you decide you're going to use it for college, certainly you want to do your best, because unless you go test optional, where you say, I don't want to submit a test score for this application, then you have the option to use that score or not use that score.
And what are the Naviance surveys that it should recommend to maybe take again or to be looking at?
Well, certainly the Do What You Are, which kind of matches your personality with career opportunities that you might be interested in. Actually, what it does measure is people who are successful and happy in their careers answered questions the same way you did. So it helps you expand on the types of careers you might be interested in, which helps you select a major for college. But half of all students still go into college undecided, which means they're gonna make up their mind after they take a year or 2 of classes. And 6 out of 10 students change their mind during college anyway. So I'd say the people that have a more focused career path, such as I'm going to be an accountant or I'm going to be a nurse, where there's a more prescribed program, an engineering program, I'd say that a lot of students could go undecided and be fine.
Can you explain what demonstrated interest is?
Demonstrated interest is a particular college's tracking of whether or not you've visited their campus, contacted their representative, attended a virtual visit, and they really track your interest because they have so many applicants, perhaps, that they want to know who's really interested in coming. And so for some schools, it's more important than others. And you certainly can always ask your representative, is your college tracking interest, or do you have demonstrated interest? Does it make a difference? Because if it comes down to the end and they have to pick student A versus student B, and student A never visited the campus or had any contact with anyone from campus or even the website or a virtual opportunity, and someone else took advantage of that, it's more, they think that you're more like the one who participated was more likely to attend. And schools watch something called yield, which means we like to invite people to attend who are actually going to attend, because that pushes us up in the rankings. And that's somewhat of how US News works, by the way. So yes, not as many schools track demonstrated interest as they did in the past. And a lot of our large state universities that are so popular to our Big Ten lovers in this area don't track it at all. So
And then do colleges only see your best score on the SAT, or do they see all your scores?
they will see every score that you submit. So it's up to you. There are a few schools that require you to submit any test scores that you have. I have mixed feelings about that. I believe test scores belong to the student. And a student should give them up willingly to a school when the student feels it's to his or her best advantage. But you also sign off on your application saying that everything is true. But I do think schools act a little unfairly in that regard in asking for all of your test scores when most of the time we're saying, tell us the best you did on a given test date.
And then I don't think this is a question, but someone said, wrote that the common data set lists scholarships for every college.
Oh, they may list the college's own scholarships, yes, but that's a lot harder to go through. The common data set lists a whole lot of information that students often find more overwhelming than just narrowing it down to the schools that they're interested in. For instance, if a college is listing its scholarship, it's probably mostly listing its presidential scholarships, its national merit scholarship, the highest end scholarships, perhaps some diversity scholarships. And those will be very easily accessible on the website. So instead of starting with a huge common data set, it's easier to look at the websites of the schools that you're interested in and see if they're offering you money. Our general rule is a student if you're looking for merit money, in other words, I want money based on my academic work and my talent or my athletic ability, then you're going to want to be at the top of the pool, either a top athlete, a top musician or artist, or certainly top in academics of that pool. Students are often unwilling to move down a tier in the level of selectivity of a college to get money. But that's really the key to getting money. If you're the strongest student in that tier, then you're more likely to get money. Also, there are many colleges that do not give any merit money at all. So the Ivy League and a lot of schools will not give any merit money. It's totally based on your need, your financial need. And that comes from filing the FAFSA or the CSS profile next year.
And then this is our last question that I have received, and that is so just for clarification, when a student takes the SAT, you can choose to send the score to a test optional college, and then later on decide you don't want them to look at that score with the application?
No, actually, you're going to have to follow the rules of the college. Some say you tell us on the application you want to go test optional, and there's no turning back, right? If you decided to go test optional and not send that test score, you put that on the application. Even if they have it, they won't look at it, all right? Some schools are allowing you to change your mind, but at this point, not every school is doing that. So make sure that you're reading that carefully. And some schools wording like Michigan says, oh, you don't have to send us a test score, but we would really highly suggest that it might be to your, so you got to kind of read between the lines sometimes, right? So their wording is very important. But this year we started out with them basically saying, no, we're not going to do it. Some changed as time went on and said, okay, if you got a better test score, we'll take it. But I would, before you send the application in indicating whether or not you want that test score used, then you need to check on their website and see exactly what their policy is.
And are those schools listed on Ferris.org, schools that have become test optional for fall of 2020? So right now for our juniors, or are they only committed to test optional for the fall of 2020?
Actually, Fair Test, it's how fairtest.org will tell you the policy of each school. So you can go on to Beloit's and look at it and see. Most of them that were test optional for this year have extended it 1, 2, or more years. Okay? So those policies should all be in place. When in doubt, consult the website of the college. or or even talk to admissions, but usually that's pretty clear because that's the one question everybody's asking. What is your test policy? Can we change it? Does it count for scholarships and admission or just for admission? I can tell you that most of the time it's for both.
And when it comes to the common application versus a college's own application, are there fee differences between them?
No, they're not permitted to have a different fee, even if it's free to versus the Common App cost. They're also not allowed to consider one application type over another. In other words, a college can't say, oh, they did the Common App. They put in a little more work than if they'd used ours. Actually, I think often they will tell us the opposite. They don't, they don't care which one it is. It's really up to you. They just offer lots of opportunities. The Common App allows people from outside their region to apply in a little easier way than they would have, whereas, because most of us tend to apply to places that are within a few hours of our home.
And do colleges require an unweighted or weighted GPA?
Both will appear on your transcript. I'd say many schools will take the highest GPA offered. There are also a number of schools that reconfigure the GPA, especially since we have a bit of a wacky grading system here. We are on a 4.0 scale, but our weighting goes all the way up to 6 points. Most schools don't go much before 5 points. So some schools actually have to reconfigure our extra points on a 5-point scale. So if you're looking at University of Denver, for instance, they're one of the schools that always says, we have to reconfigure your whole GPA because you have these extra points here. So most of the time, they're going to take it as is. They're looking at the rigor versus the points. As I said, both appear on the GPA. If you are asked to give only one on an application, put the highest one that you have, the one that benefits you most. If they reconfigure it, and generally if they're reconfiguring, by the way, what they're doing is taking English, math, science, social studies, and world languages, and that's it. Not your electives, not your PE, not anything else, and they're coming up with a core GPA and they're converting it to a 4.0 so they can compare it to other students that are applying, because there are 100 different grading scales out there and GPAs, and then they will give you extra points for weighting. So that's a question you can ask your admissions person. Are you reconfiguring the GPA? Are you taking the highest, or are you considering only the unweighted?
The very last question we have here is, when will the juniors fill out the SAT form that indicates what colleges the scores should be sent to? Will that have to be on testing day?
I'm not sure how the English department is, because it's usually through English classes. So I'm guessing that they're still going to do that through the classes on the days that the students are here. I don't know what they're doing with students who are not here. So that's a question that I will try to get an answer to and find out. However, anytime you take a test, by the way, a week before, a week after, you can go into your account and you can change it. You could add schools, you could take schools out. So let's say you thought you were going to have a wonderful test day and it turns out you were feeling miserable that day and said, you know what, I'm not sure I really want these scores sent. You can go back into your account and change that with either ACT or College Board.
All right. That's it for questions.
Good. I know we ran over time. I hope this wasn't too much. As I said, we're going to do this again. Please let us know if this is helpful, or and reach out to your counselors and myself if you have any additional questions. Just because we turn the Zoom off doesn't mean that we're not available. So email us, and all of you have a wonderful spring break.